Collective Awakening podcast,
sharing truth and knowledge in this time of conscious awakening
with Chris and Stephen.
Hello friends, and welcome to the Collective Awakening podcast, and we're live, so welcome to anyone who's joining us on Facebook, or maybe you're just watching this on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you're listening to us. It's great to be with you. And we've got a very special episode tonight on men's health and well-being, very important subject. Of course, Stephen's here with me, and we welcome back our guests again. We've done many previous episodes with Lewis Powell, who's a shamanic practitioner and also owner and creator of the Inner Guru as well. And also we welcome back Kieran Congdon as well, who's a men's online development coach as well. So both have a great deal of experience when we're talking about men's health and well-being. So we're looking forward to sharing that, and I'm looking forward to hearing it as well. So welcome, Lewis and Kieran. It's great to have you with us again. If anybody wants to review that, we've got quite a few episodes with Lewis as well, and we've got an episode that we did last year with Kieran if you want to know a little bit more about them as well. But I feel a good place to start. I was just reviewing some of the facts as we talk about men's health, and I've not looked at some of the percentages, even in the UK, when we talk about suicide rates or people that are experiencing mental health issues. I was quite shocked when we're getting into like 75%, 77% I'm seeing of people that are males. It's quite staggering figures. And what I want to ask to both of you really individually is, how do you feel we sort of found ourselves in the place we are now, where these percentages are so high of men's suicide rate and men's mental health, so much struggle at this moment? So do you want to go first, Kieran?
Yeah, thanks, mate. I'm quite passionate about this subject, being a men's mental health coach. And for me, it's quite clear in regards to the world that we live in has changed so much from, well, you could probably look at like each kind of decade, let's say 2000 to 2010, from 10 to 20, from 20, no doubt, to 30, it's going to change so much again. That's changed so much, but our way of teaching kids hasn't. So the school system and what we learn in school hasn't changed since really the 1900s. And it's crazy because my nana, right, she's 94. And talking to her the other month, she told me she learned algebra at school. How many people have used algebra after they left school is got to be, I'm going to guess, less than 10. Out of the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that are learning, I'm going to guess less than 10. So it goes to show that the school system and what we're being taught as kids hasn't changed, but the world that we live in has a hell of a lot. And it may be changing slightly in regards to maybe social media and the online world slightly creeping into what kids get taught, but the fundamentals and the main topics that are being taught haven't changed. So I feel like technology and the world has become so advanced and so much wiser, but us as humans haven't, and we simply don't know how to deal with it. You know what I mean? We're still stuck in a bit of like the ape kind of era compared to where the world is. We're apes trying to use phones and TikTok when we don't know the effects of it, and tools. Imagine giving an ape a chainsaw. Is pretty much something dodgy going to go wrong. You know what I mean? Something's going to drastically go wrong. And I feel like that's the same with where we are now, that we've got all these different tools and technology around us, and we simply just don't know how to use them and or don't know the effects of them. But then more so on a kind of a self-development level, we simply just don't get taught how to think. We don't get taught how to deal with stressful situations. We don't get taught how to be able to change perception and change your perspective on situations. We don't get taught how to kind of work on our own traumas. We don't get taught none of this shit, which essentially all add weight to our own shoulders. So then when we're trying to get through life, we're doing it with, a 50 kilo backpack on our back weighing us down. So until we start getting taught this stuff in schools, I don't think anything's going to change. That's my opinion.
Yes, so if we could come over to Lewis. Sort of same question, really, your thoughts.
Yeah, so I think that from what I see, in the centre that we have in Liverpool, the Inner Guru, the Men's Hub. I mean, not only just there, but through life experience and my personal clients that I've worked with, I find that a lot of the roots of male, in particular, mental health issues comes down to a few things. One of the main things that I find that men with poor mental health, is they have a lack of purpose. I think that purpose is a huge factor in something that, especially as men, I think it's very important that we have that sense of purpose, that we have a drive. Not necessarily like goals are a fantastic way to obviously keep us driven, but even just like having a purpose of living, it could be like fatherhood, it could be running a business, it could be many different factors. But I think that like purpose is one reason why men struggle with their mental health if they don't have that. I found that helping people to find a sense of purpose in their life, it brings like the fire back inside of them again. It gives them something to live for. I think that that's a reason why a lot of people do take their own life. I mean, not only that, I think that there's other factors. I think that not being taught, by positive male role models, I think that that's really important. I think that a lot of us lack that positive male influence as children. Not just male influence, but even influence from our mothers. I think that that can also negatively affect men's mental health. But I think the biggest one is the fact that men struggle to speak. I think that there is like an old school, like sort of distorted masculine belief system around not it's not okay, to share your feelings, and that we should bury them and suppress them. I find a very interesting like old school, like I'd say like divine masculine sort of principles is stoicism. Believe it or not, like stoicism actually encourages like the people to feel emotions, but like I think that kind of got a bit distorted into like the more sort of like you need to power through emotions, you need to not suppress them and not deal with them. But I think that comes from times of hardship, in the last 100 years. So especially like in the war times, I think that it was really necessary for people to not show emotions, and especially like military, things that act like do not show emotion. You need to do this. It's all about survival. And I think that that's a big factor in why men in particular don't. I think that the main influence on why the numbers are so high in men and not in women is the fact that men don't have a space to open up as much as what. I'm not saying as much as what women do, as if they have more of a space to open up, but they're more emotional beings with women in general, and that I think that men are slightly conditioned more than women not to open up as much, and I think that's what creates a lot of these mental health issues within men.
Yeah, absolutely. So Stephen, just going to come over to you.
Yeah, interesting, looking at both perspectives from, talking from a Lewis perspective and Kieran's perspective. But, talking about school there, I think, learning things at school is great. It's amazing. We were looking at our peers and teachers, but what role do you think a family have in terms, or community? There does seem to be such a distortion and a broken set of community now. The past 100 years, I've seen it. The broken up side of the community and the family. So, what role do you think, but sort of to both of you, do you think a family has to hold that space for men, not just for fathers, but also for mothers as well? Because I find with a lot of readings that I do that you have a lot of single women now, a lot of people splitting up from the dads and the fathers, and it seems very broken, the family dynamics or the family itself, if that makes sense. So what role do you think the family have to hold that space or create that space for men and for young boys?
It's a good question, that, Stephen. And I'd like to comment on firstly something Lewis mentioned there in regards to men with that kind of not being able to open up and or not having the space to open up. And something I say to my clients to really try and turn that story of, don't open up, don't talk about your feelings, kind of suppress them, how to turn that on its head. And the way I look at it is, I don't know if I mentioned this on our podcast, Chris and Stephen, but I look at it from a place of by opening up and speaking about your feelings is actually a sign of strength and a sign of courage, because it's difficult to do. And then I'd go one step further. And for those of them that are thinking, I need to not speak because I need to man up and get on with it, or whatever their stories that they've got, I would say they're actually being weak, let's say, just because it's the opposite of being strong, by suppressing it and by not saying anything, because that's easy to do. It's easy to suppress it and not say anything. So I would give anyone a nudge to be able to find the courage within them to speak about their emotions, to open up and be vulnerable. Like, being vulnerable, I do think in the past, and to a degree still now, it was a sign of weakness, but I really believe it's a sign of strength. And I think if that was the common narrative, it'd be a much better place. And in regards to your comment there, Stephen, of a lot of single parents, a lot of single mums and families splitting up and stuff, I also think that is linked in with what I also mentioned before in regards to, like, we haven't been taught differently. So back in my mum and dad's era, they met each other at the pub. They didn't have social media. My dad had the choice of who was in the pub to a degree. If he had the choice of the whole pub. This day and age, you've got the choice of God knows how many people. The women are very much in charge of, they pick the men a lot of the time rather than the men picking the women. It's not 50-50 anymore by any means. So I think with the kind of relationship dating market changing so much, being online, we're in such a strange period of, like, if you go up to a woman in the supermarket and ask for a number, or even in the pub, you get called a creep, I presume. I can't say I've done it myself, but you almost looked at it like a creep. So it's changed so much, and the kind of education and or the society's view on it hasn't changed. But as in regards to the question of how does the kind of family play a role, I really believe now, especially if you're a parent, it is part of your job as a parent to work on yourself and to kind of do all the things that are difficult, so then your son or daughter can view that and understand and see that's the better option, rather than suppressing emotions, rather than not having any purpose, rather than just letting life kind of control you, rather than you having some form of control over life. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think it's more of a family's role and job to work on themselves, so then their sons and daughters can follow in their footsteps.
So there's a huge responsibility for parents to raise the children, and children are dependent on parents. But I think that one of the main issues with parents is that they, like echoing what Kieran said, is that they're just not done the work on themselves. I think that, it's too late to sort of blame our older generations for what they did or didn't do. I think that, there's no point in getting into that. I think that it's important, if you are a parent, is to raise your child teach them that they are individuals, teaching them that teaching them independence, how to not rely on on the parents when they're adults. I think that's one thing that's massively missing in our culture is initiation. I think that the majority of people that are in the world are children, broken children. If you look at world leaders, they're just wounded children. There's no real men in the world that are leading the world. There's no, people have been brought up to either become entitled, dependent. I mean, if you go into the world thinking that it owes you a favor, you're going to have a very, very harsh surprise at some point in your life. That's for sure. I think as well that if you're brought up into the world, dependent on parents, I think that you'll find that you become a very weak person. So I think that there's a huge responsibility in parents for their children's upbringing, and it's not just putting food on the table. I think there can be like polarities here. There can be neglect, which obviously creates massive codependency issues, anxiety, anxious attachment styles, and things like that. But also there can be over like smothering, which creates like these sort of like entitlement things I mean, our parents have a lot to answer for, to be honest, for the way that we are. But like I said just earlier, that the initiation is something that's massively missing within our culture. A lot of tribal cultures, they give like Cambo, for example, to like 10-year-olds, and when children are like 16, they send them off into the forest to like fend for themselves. And they understand that children should be warriors, and like they should like not have to depend on family. But at the same time, community is important. I think that inherently as humans, we do have that it's like a primal instinctual connection to the tribe. Like the Yawanawa tribe, for example, they say if one of us is sick, all of us are sick, because they have that sort of pact mentality, which also plays a part, because I think that deep down a lot of like these sort of collective fears that we all carry on some level that we all need to process is this like deep fear of rejection. And that comes from back in the earlier days when, and this is like neuroscience, like shows that there is a correlation between, the deep primal fear that we have of being rejected and also the fear of being rejected from the tribe. Because like if we back in the day when it was like survival, like if you're rejected from the tribe or from the pack, it's the same with like monkeys and things like that. If you're rejected from your tribe or your family, then you're going to die, so there is also like this deep unconscious programming that comes from not being in a community or tribe. It's the same thing. So I think that there is definitely importance of having community for mental well-being. I think that support is really useful. I think that it's great, that we can support people within our community if they're feeling down and things like that. But it's a fine line. I think that it's really important to be able to understand when people need support or when people are needing rescuing. I think that that complex of rescuing can, come from, deep patterns from childhood with our parents. So yeah, answering that question about the family and their community, I think that it's important as well, but also I think that we shouldn't depend on it.
I just want to mention there, which is I think is a really good point, Lewis, because we find this with the clients we work at the Purple Mountain, trying to help people learn when to step in, when not to step in, because you can fall into when they're acting the victim and you coming in and you trying to rescue that person, but also creating those boundaries. I think perhaps sort of both to you, Kieran and Lewis, on your personal experience, what kind of tips would you give somebody that sort of, if you're a brother or if you're a sister and you're faced with somebody that's struggling with mental health, when do you step in? When don't you step in? Where is the boundaries? Where are we rescued? Where are we not? Because there's a lot of people that are facing this, and I find this with parents. Do I step in? Do I try to help them? Do I not? And they struggle, you know, and a lot of it comes to boundaries and things like that. So what advisements would you give?
It's a good question, that, Stephen. Just before I answer that, I'd just like to make a comment again on what Lewis has said in regards to being rejected from the tribe. Can't agree more. And I think what a very, like what I'd maybe call the sister or the brother of rejection is also loneliness. And I think that's something that a lot of people are experiencing in this day and age, because the connections that we have is all through mobile phones, and there's no real deep connections whatsoever. So I really, really believe in the work that I do with the clients. It's a lot of people are lonely, and when they come into a group of high caliber men to a degree, they almost feel at home, where they know that everyone within that group is on the same journey as them. So it might not be their actual bloodline family, but they feel like they're at home. And it's exactly what I actually got with the latest ceremony with Lewis. I felt like I was at home. So yeah, just a slight comment on that. But in regards to your question, Stephen, I actually think stepping in at the earliest opportunity is going to be the best option. But how you help, I think, is probably worth commenting on, because from my experience, I knew and know I could have helped many different people in my life, but they haven't either accepted it or wanted it or been open to it, because they don't see me as a professional or as a coach or as someone who can help them. They see me as a partner, a brother, a son, for example. So if you're going to step in and help someone, I think the best way you can actually help them is to, put your arm around them and say, how are you doing? Are you all right? Do you need to talk? Blah, 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 the usual stuff. But then actually find them professional help. The amount of kind of people I could have helped over the years, but because that relationship with them wasn't a professional one, they haven't been open to it. There's been a lot. So I think by helping them, he's actually just been able to check in on them and then push them and nudge them towards a professional.
Yeah, I totally agree with Kieran. On that, it can be very difficult to work with people that are quite close to you, and also family members for sure. It's almost like there's like it's the professional boundary isn't there, and I think that there can be, even though like our parents and family respect us, they don't respect us in a professional light, and they see us as, because we know them, they know us, we know their flaws, they know ours. There can be like this sort of mistrust almost. It's crazy, isn't it? It's paradoxical, because like they're the people that we're closest to, but actually when it comes to like dealing with things, they can be actually the hardest people to work with. So yeah, when we're working with friends, like I still go round like these patterns with friends that are like repeating the same things over and over again. And like the amount of times over the years that I've given them like, the best advice, and they still choose to go against it and still choose to go back into the same things. And then the most frustrating part is that I'm just waiting for that phone call like a week later where they're going to go, I've done it again. I'm back here again. Help, So I think that sometimes in that situation, sometimes you have to like sort of bite your lip and take a step back in that situation. I think sometimes it can be very useful to take that step back and let people learn a lesson. But it's very tricky when it comes to people that are, in a really low place, and, they're sort of like in the red zone for, suicide or, potential self-harm. I think that's when there has to be an intervention. Sometimes it might not be you. If it's someone that's close to you, it might not be you that can do that. It might be have to be someone that's impartial. But there is a discernment that needs to take place when intervening with people's issues, because it's all good and well. A lot of us, sort of who want to help people can have like these savior complexes in a way, where we want to try and save the world and take on the burdens of everybody, but you can't do that. You can't actually help somebody. It's almost like a cosmic law. You can't actually help somebody that doesn't want to be helped. You can only actually help someone that has that willingness to want to be helped. Now, it wouldn't matter if that person was, suicidal. If that person genuinely doesn't want to be helped, then it doesn't matter what anybody says or does. Now, because if they genuinely don't want to be helped, then they'll either commit suicide or they will want to be rescued. So this is why it is tricky, because obviously if you are saving somebody's life, you're not kind of being the rescuer. What you're doing is you're actually responding to an emergency situation, which is very different to somebody playing a victim and then pulling them out of the, throwing them the rope, so to speak, and then, pulling them up, and then they keep choosing to go back down the same hole again, because you can only do so much with people. But I think that rather than rescuing, I think that empowerment is really important. I think that empowerment is something that if we are going to give anything to anybody, without their sort of willingness to be helped, I think that empowerment is something that we can try to do to get that person to get themselves out of the hole. You can only pull someone out of a hole so many times before eventually, falling in yourself or dropping the rope. So it's like empowerment is, I believe, is the best thing that we can do for anybody that's going through a kind of mental health issue.
Great that, Lewis. If I could just quickly jump in there. We mentioned the book that I wrote on ayahuasca last time. One of the phrases that came up was, you don't empower people, you become empowering. And I think the best way, because there's obviously very much varying levels of help you can give. Like, as you said, Lewis, you can throw them the rope and literally save their life, but you can also help them by being the best version of you and walking the walk yourself, and empower them by being empowering. And if you so an example of this would be, I've decided this year to go 12 months alcohol free. This is after 10 years of pretty much binge drinking. The amount of friends that I've firstly even considered it just because I'm doing it has been quite a lot. Then there's been a smaller number that have actually joined me along that journey just because I'm doing it myself. It almost has no influence on their life to a degree, whether I do it or not. But because I've decided to try and walk the walk, they've jumped on board. So I think, just following on from what you said there, Luis, I think another level of help would be to work on yourself once again. For me personally, I don't know if it's my own perspective just in the world that I live in, but if you really go to town and working on yourself, everything almost outside of yourself generally gets better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's some really good points made there, and particularly what you were picking up on there, Lewis, as well. And I don't know anyone who's kind, compassionate, giving, who hasn't experienced that lesson of trying to help someone, and it goes around that spiral, or saying, don't walk through that door, you know what's through that door. And actually, most people are more likely to do it, to carry on, if it's somebody close to you, just because, and I'm sure that happens a lot in families as well, your dad or your mum tells you something, oh, I'm going to do it anyway. And I think what you both picked up on there, that fine line, it's a fine line of stepping in, knowing when to step in or not, and respectfully, suppose it comes down to knowing or feeling that somebody's genuinely in a tough spot, or they're a little bit sort of crying out for help in another way, but not in a way that's there's going to be danger, if that makes sense. Yes.
So I think that this is a really interesting topic, because it's not something that's well discussed. I believe, like, I'm really not one to babysit or sugarcoat, or, like, you know, when it comes to people's issues, like, I'm quite blunt, I'm quite straight with people. Like, I really don't encourage any kind of victim consciousness. I just, for me, it's toxic, and it breeds all this, you know, like these patterns of rescuing and things like that. And this is also a very fine line of obviously how to be direct with people that need to be told, because some people need a kick up the arse. I'm not being, you know, rude or arrogant about that, but it's like some people need that direct approach when it comes to, you know, like, you know, pity party, or, you know, feeling sorry for yourself, or, you know, playing the victim. Because when like, on a sort of mystical cosmic level of, like, when you are a victim, there is a polarity. You are, when you are in that energy of being a victim, there's always going to be a polarizing energy that's opposing that. So if you're in a victim energy, you're always in your reality, you're always going to create a persecutor, somebody that's doing something wrong. If you're a victim in your mind, obviously this is not taking away anything from victims of any kind of trauma or any kind of, you know, adversity. You know, we've all, you know, everybody has been victims to some degree of something, but the fact of the matter is that you're no longer a victim now. This is the difference, is that the victim of the past, yes, okay, there might have been a point in life where there was some kind of trauma, but right now, if you're still, you know, believing that you're a victim, you're in your own mind, you know, and that's a response to trauma. But the thing is, if you are constantly going over the same story and feeling sorry for yourself for what's happened, then you're never going to be able to overcome that. So sometimes people need to have somebody be direct with them when it comes to what they need to do to be helped. Now, the biggest pitfall that people have, especially when we want to help people, is that we reinforce it. It's like, you know, oh yeah, how, you know, poor you, that's terrible, you know, that you're feeling like this. And it perpetuates that cycle of the belief that the person is still a victim. If somebody's coming and rescuing them all the time, or feeding that narrative, then what happens is the person will never be helped. Now, I've been in ceremonies before, even with ayahuasca, believe it or not, you know, years ago. And I've met people, like, yeah, nearly 10 years ago, that are still in the same, you know, mentality. So it even goes to show that plant medicines won't do that for you if you're not willing to look at it. And that's why, like, the clients I work with, I can be quite direct with people. Well, not so much like rude, it's just holding a mirror up for people to be able to see what it is that they're doing to themselves. The drama that's being created in their own mind has to be changed. It's the beliefs around it that has to be changed, and sometimes that requires directness. But yeah, so there is a fine line there, because obviously if someone is in a mental health crisis, you're not going to just go to them and start saying, stop being a victim. Obviously that's not helpful. But in some situations, it can be helpful to be more direct than to like, yeah, babysit and to, like, you know, rub people's backs or things like that. I'm not saying that there's not space for that, but what I'm saying is it's just not to feed that narrative that the person is a victim to their life.
Yeah, like we've said, it's a fine line, and I totally understand what's being said here. It's because on the side of, if that victim mentality is encouraged, it can literally feel, and I've experienced this, like, I could do this for another 10 years with this person. We could just be going round and round, and just picking up what you said about truth there, Lewis. I feel, and I know me and Stephen have talked about this a lot, there's a little bit, it can be a bit misconstrued in the world, this mollycoddling, that, and I'll say from my experience, some of the best people I've met in my life, some of the best friends, best teachers, have been brutally honest and sometimes chopped my ego in two. And years, it's not felt good at the time, but 6 months to a year after, I've been absolutely so grateful to that person. Really helped me. And it's, you know, the word medicine is being used, but sometimes the medicine doesn't always taste good, doesn't always go down well, but it is the one you need. So I think that's, you know, and we have experience where sometimes you have to be very truthful with people for the good from the heart. And it can be seen as, oh my God, you're being so brutal. And it's not. We're saying we're actually trying to help. We're trying to help this person at that moment. A good friend of mine who, when I was experiencing around the last couple of years around a grief situation, and I was talking to him, and they just stopped me and said, Chris, you're rambling, you're telling a story. Tell me what you're really feeling. And I feel that's such a good way of cutting the crap. And that person, I'll tell you, they helped me so much. And it just cut to it. And I feel that that's what we need to encourage, but also see that is from the heart. It's not brutal. It's not horrible. It's really truthfully trying to help. Yeah.
It's a very good point, that, Chris. And as you were talking then, I couldn't help but think about the time when I was binge drinking and I had therapy for it, right? And something I noticed through the therapy and from therapists that I know, they almost can't have that brutalness and they can't just be that direct. It's a lot of, interesting. What do you think about that? Okay.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about that? And they just reflect back to you, and for you to almost try and work it out yourself, depending obviously the therapy style and the therapist individually, but generally that's what a lot of therapy is. They don't really kind of be that direct, but it does really bring up the question of, well, when do I hold that shoulder to cry on? When do I put my arm around them? And when do I be direct? And for me personally, like, because being compassionate isn't my nature, I guess. I am very much, personally, I take 110% responsibility for every little single thing in my life. And I really try and drill this into my clients as well. But there's obviously a scale of something very severe that has happened. You maybe then want to be a bit more compassionate and lend that shoulder to cry on. But I also think as well, what it comes down to, if I was to try and summarize and answer that question myself, it's the time from the incident. Let's say if there's some kind of traumatic incident happened, let's say right this moment, me being told direct and being blunt, someone being that like that to me, it probably wouldn't go down too well because it's only just happened. The wound is still very open. But like your example there, Chris, from whatever you were talking about to the point of you actually talking about it, there's been a story created. So there's been time between the two things, and you've built up this story, and he had to knock that story out of you by asking you to direct and being that blunt. If he'd asked you that right after it happened, he probably wouldn't have done as went down so well, right? So I think the time from the kind of incident to the advice, if that goes on longer and longer and longer, the more blunt the advice and directness needs to be, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree, Kieran. The thing is, like what you said as well, Chris, about the truth. I mean, the truth just cuts through the bullshit, and it's the bullshit that creates the problems. It's like when events are no longer there anymore, what's still going on in your head is actually bullshit. It's just your mind telling you a story, and that's just repeating itself. So I think that being the truth is ultimately, it can be seen as brutal, but it's not. It's the most loving, compassionate, unconditionally loving, should I say, thing that you can do for somebody, is to tell them the truth. Now, it might not even be telling a person the truth. It can be allowing them the space to tell you the truth. Now, that could be about how they're feeling. It could be, because a lot of the time people are, especially in our culture, we walk down the road, we say, how are you doing? We couldn't give a shit how someone's doing. Walking down the road saying, oh, how's it going? How's your day? Do you really care about how's the day? No, it's superficial. It's bullshit, but it breeds this that no one actually gives a shit about how you feel. Now, if you ask someone a question, you sit them down and you say, if you said to them, "Oh, how are you?" They'll probably go, "Oh yeah, I'm doing great." Deep down inside, they want to kill themselves. If you sat that person down and you were compassionate with them, you could even give them an arm around and make that person feel safe enough to say, "How are you really feeling?" Has anybody ever said that to you? Has anybody sat you down and said, "Well, how are you really feeling?" I mean, how powerful is that to be able to do that? And that's because you're showing that you genuinely want to know. And I think that that's important, is to, rather than feeding an illusion, it's to ask that person how they are really feeling. And then you're going to get at least closer to the truth answer. And that's going to allow that person then to process whatever it is that's there, because they feel safe enough to share that with you.
I just unmuted myself there to follow on exactly from what you were saying and try and tie this all together, because I was taught I'm going to try and walk the walk now, because I was saying before about being vulnerable and open up and it's courage and all the rest of it. Well, that is a really good question you've just asked there, Lewis, of someone sitting down and say, like, I know, how are you really doing? The weekend just gone, I got asked for the first time in my life, "Are you happy?" And honestly, I was like, it stopped me like a handbrake on a car. I actually got upset about it, and it was not upset, but I was definitely tears were coming out my eyes, put it that way, because it was the first time in life someone actually said, "Are you happy?" And I've never been happier, in all honesty. But it was the fact that no one's ever actually asked me that, and I was just like, it's a bit sad, really. That isn't a more common question. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a good point there, Lewis.
I mean, just want to just mention there as well, and it's something a little bit on those lines that we try to do in some of our meditation. Some of our big work at the Perfect Mat is promoting the importance of meditation and breath work. And one of those things we try to do is to to stop, because we're so busy in our lives, and I've fallen into that give all the time. Stop. It's okay to stop, pause, breathe, and inquire. Ask yourself those questions. How am I feeling? What am I feeling? And if you're not happy, do something about it. People think and feel that they're powerless. No, you're not. You are free. Stop, look within. And I know that's not always easy, because sometimes people struggle to do that, particularly men. But that's something, but it's all about deprogramming, I feel. It's about reprogramming our way of thinking, because it's the bloody mind that comes in the way all the time. Stop, observe, and inquire. What are you actually feeling inside? But I want to ask, just moving on from some of those amazing sort of points, there's a lot of people, and I'm Chris, I'm sure we're all probably on the same wavelength here, is labels. Sick to death of labels. Once you label yourself, people become that. And generally there are people out there that are suffering from mental health, of course. But what would you both define depression to be? What is depression? Because I think, people listen to the podcast, and it's so easy now for particularly a lot of young people going to the doctor, just getting a pill, getting depression tablets. And how do we combat that? How do we encourage, and what kind of things do you do to combat depression?
Another good question, Stephen. Something, again, very passionate about. And I look at depression as simply just a way of thinking. So it's thoughts that come in, they then turn to emotions and feelings, which then turn to actions. And kind of below all that is the depression, let's say. So the thoughts around, and this comes back to, again, not being taught how to think. So when you're not taught how to think well, let's say, I know it's very vague, but when you're taught how to think well, a situation happens in your life and you almost struggle to process it. It then becomes trauma. You then overthink it and go round and round and round, which then creates the feeling of depression. Obviously, Andrew Tate got a lot of hate around saying depression isn't real. It's made up, or whatever he said. And I don't know exactly word for word what he said, but I got his thought process around, if in my world it doesn't exist, I can't become it. So the opposite to that is getting a label of I am depressed, And we have to be very careful with the language we use. And it's something which I try to do myself a lot in regards to, like what I just said there, I am depressed. Because if you say, and whatever comes actually after the words I am, you need to be really careful of, because you'll become it. I've probably said on this podcast, did I? I can't remember now. I said I was a binge drinker. I think maybe, I don't know. I'd have to rewind and think about it. So if I said I am a binge drinker, I likely won't stop binge drinking until I stop saying that. You know what I mean? So when people say I am depressed, the subtle change of I am feeling depressed today is such a significant change, not just kind of mentally, but I'd believe physiologically, biologically, no doubt as well. And I think it has a cascade effect through the body, from mind to body to then actually actions and doing different things, would help them relieve that feeling of depression. So you've got to really, again, be wise as to what world we live in. And I'm a big believer that the government and the NHS system is that job of that system is to sell pharmaceutical drugs. So if someone walks in and says, "I'm feeling depressed," or I am depressed, it's so easy to get them type of tablets. My dad's still stuck in grief after 2 years of losing mum passing, and he had an appointment with the doctor because he was very against getting any form of antidepressants. I was all for it, and all for it in terms of not him going down that route. But it came to the point where nothing was changing, and this also links into what we were saying before in regards to he wasn't able to accept my help because I'm his son, but I could spot night and day from the stuff that his counsellor was saying to him, and that nothing was changing. She wasn't helping him change the way he thought. So anyway, he had a phone call appointment with the doctors, and they pretty much analysed him over the phone and said, if you go up to your local chemist, there'll be some antidepressants waiting there for you. Like, you can grab them, we've got your name on. And that's how easy it was. So when someone is in a state of pain mentally and they're feeling a little bit down, if they think, I don't know what to do, I'll just ring the doctor because the doctor's a trusted person and I'll, be all right in their hands. But the doctor's job is to give them antidepressants. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to believe they don't need them at all. So it's another point to make in regards to being wise as to the world we live in. So I think that answers the question.
I think also with depression, like, it's something that I think that quite a lot of people will experience at some point in their life. I think that it can be a response to so many different factors. Like, it can be like being overwhelmed with a lot of different things happening in a short space of time, not being able to deal with it. It can be as a response to grief. It can be as a response to lots of different unprocessed emotions that eventually what happens if we can't deal with it, it's a coping mechanism that we use to suppress things, and then we become numb and flat. But also as well, people become depressed when they have a lack of purpose. And also, I think that faith and purpose kind of both tie in very much so with each other. Like, some people like have a strong faith, some people have strong religion, and that keeps them like, I've met some of the happiest Christians that you'll ever meet because they're just so rejoiceful at the fact that they have this belief in Jesus, and each to their own. That's their faith. That's their, that gives them a sense of purpose. For me, it's my path that I walk on. That's what drives me. It keeps me going. Now, it doesn't take long for me to become depressed or to feel depression. Like, if I have a week off the gym and I don't do any, focus on any of my work, within a week, I'll be feeling depressed. Like, I've been battling mental health problems for most of my life, and that's what will happen to me. I've got my routines. I've got my ways of keeping my mental state of mind good. A lot of people don't have that, and then you can become like chronically depressed. But I think that like having a sense of purpose is something that massively helps people to get out of that. But in regards to the question about the label, very similar to what Kieran said. If you do say I am are the two most powerful words in the whole of this reality that we are in. I am. Anything that you put on after I am is what you are. Now, it depends on how much you believe that. Now, if you strongly believe that you are, if you believe that you are the most happiest, the most amazing person that exists, and you believe that strong enough with them words, I am that, then you will be that. You know, whether anyone else thinks that you are or not is totally irrelevant. Yeah, if you believe that you are, then you are, because it's your reality. Now, if you say I am depressed, then you are, yeah, you keeping yourself as that. You are, that is your identity. Now, it's the same with a lot of these other health conditions. There's so many now. You know, the ADHD diagnoses, the you know, autism spectrum, the, you know, chronic pain, fibros, and things like that. You know, I've witnessed what that labeling can do to people, and it completely prevents healing. Now, you can get so far when you're doing healing work with someone, like, for example, like chronic pain. People who have chronic pain can get to a certain point, and when it comes to that final moment of we're going to break through this now, and then they have to let go of that identity, it all comes back, because it's like that person doesn't want to let go of that identity. And the problem with labeling is it gives people an identity, but the problem is, and this is the whole sort of like cyclical nature of it, of the beasts, for example, you know, being labeled, is the fact that people are looking for an identity because they don't know who they are. And that's very sad, because people are searching. And if someone gives them something to say, this is what you are, then unfortunately that can be a trap that person might never get out of.
Yeah, I think that's a super powerful point that's been made there, and something that's very much in the modern world we live in. What's occurring at this time, and what we want to sort of ask about now is really, I know we touched on a few things there, is about when we come to finding out or remembering, discovering who we truly are, and discovering that purpose as well that can sort of drive us forward. What I'd say, light our inner fire. I'd sort of like to bring up the subject around plant medicines, because it's a huge subject at the minute, especially coming, you know, people with mental health issues, for example, microdosing with psilocybin, ceremonies, ayahuasca ceremonies, kambo, and what part they play in overcoming, in stripping back some of these distortions that we can pick up, and rediscovering ourselves.
I'll give you my short experience of this area, and it's probably worth me giving you a little bit of a backstory to it, because previous to me being involved with plant medicine, I was very, what I would call, heady. I would think myself out of any problem. I got taught by a guy called Peter Crone, who, in my opinion, is the best man on the planet as far as mindset goes. And his product, as he says, is freedom of the mind, removing all limitations of the way we think to a degree. And it was such a life-changing experience to be mentored by him. But the kind of downside and the trap I got caught in was I was very much in here. This is only a short, like, it's a small space. There can only so much can fit in there. You know what I mean? So I got stuck in my head a hell of a lot, and I got stuck in my life to a degree because I was trying to think my way out my problems. So when I started going down the plant medicine route, it got me out of my head a little bit and into my body. And I went into plant medicine with the most open mind I possibly could have. At the same time, kind of knowing phrases that people put in it, like it's 10 years worth of therapy in one go and all this sort of stuff. And I really believe, and I made a post on Instagram a couple of weeks ago, actually after the last ayahuasca ceremony, that for me, plant medicine it gives you what no book or mentor can teach you. And I've had a goal for a lot of years now of just becoming as conscious as I possibly can. And that by default, I have to kind of find my blind spots. And all the mentors I've had in the world, in my life, should I say, I have asked them all, how do you spot your blind spots? How do you shine light on them areas? And I've had many different kind of answers to that. And I think the best answer I got, and kind of adding my own little bit onto it, is you don't see your blind spots. They're blind for a reason. It takes a hell of a lot of reflection, a hell of a lot of smart friends around you for them to be open enough and vulnerable enough and courageous enough to be able to reflect back to you. I actually think as well, watching things like this, if I was to watch this back, I'd maybe pick up on things that I'm not aware of as I'm here right now saying it. So finding your blind spots is a difficult thing to do alone, but plant medicine just like lit up floodlights on it. You know, when imagine a rugby stadium and it switches all the lights on at one go. I was stood in the middle of the pitch. I was just like, oh my God. So for me, again, like being taught by Peter Crone, who I believe is the best in the world, I was in a position of, well, where do I go from here? Unless I spend another $6,000 doing another course of years. And I think as you go up the levels of learning about yourself, it then also becomes harder to find them other areas. Like if someone's really fat, miserable, overweight, they've got no life purpose, they hate the job, they hate the relationship, they've got so much learning to do. It's almost quite easy. But as you go through the levels almost, these things of finding out about yourself and the rate of progression slows down, and finding these things out about yourself takes a longer time and it takes more extreme things to do. This year, I want to go and do a 7-day silent retreat. Once upon a time, standing up in a seminar in part of the audience and ask a question was out of my comfort zone. Doing this, I'd never done this years ago. You know what I mean? So it takes more extreme things to continue growing, to find them blind spots and everything else. So yeah, plant medicine for me was my new teacher. After being taught by what I say the best in the world is, as far as this goes, even though he's very spiritual, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to go to plant medicine now to teach me what courses and language can't teach. Because I think also, although language is important, it's also a limitation. And plant medicine doesn't necessarily speak in the English language. So I think, yeah, that's my take. That's up to me, up to my point so far.
Yeah, so plant medicines are a tool to explore our inner world, and you know, it's you know, with the mindset coaching things, that it's all great. You know, we can push against our fears. We can go, you know, achieve challenges that we've never overcome before. You know, you can climb the highest mountains. You can do triathlons. You can do, you know, all of these things to, you know, battle and achieve, you know, face your limitations almost. But plant medicines just opens up a whole other world of challenge, because they had, like what Kieran says, they highlight the things that within us that haven't had any highlighting before. Especially ayahuasca, for example, it will shine a light on the shadows. It's and this is where the real work is. Yeah, this is so yeah, definitely what Kieran says about, you know, taking the next step, because it is, you know, it's the hardest work, it's the scariest work. When we start, like when you start doing more and more and more work with plant medicines, the deeper and the deeper and the deeper you go into your fears that you never even knew existed, you know, and that's where we can grow exponentially, because we can just keep digging deeper with these tools. You know, there's no way that you can get into these depths with just therapy alone, because the plant medicines know us very intimately. The plant medicines know us more intimately than we could ever know ourselves, and they highlight that back to ourselves. And the more that we can explore within the depths of our own subconscious mind, the more beautiful our life can become, and the more that we can grow and we can live how we should be. What I like about plant medicines is that they carry an ancient knowledge. They have that connection to the earth and that wisdom that has been here far before humans ever existed on the planet. And I believe, and this is through my personal experience with many, many, many plant medicine journeys and diets, is that the earth and its plants care for us. No, that the earth is a mother. It's the greatest mother, and these plants are like the extensions of her, and they teach us. There's so many different types of plants that can teach us, and they all have their own different wisdom. I mean, this is if Kieran's interested in exploring more, you there's a whole other world of learning to do with plants, because they just know so much more than we could possibly ever know. We've only been here for a very short period of time, and these plants have been here for a long time, perhaps millions of years. And especially ayahuasca, she teaches us how to live properly. She teaches us how we should live. Like most of the people that I know that have worked with ayahuasca over the years, it's completely changed their life to the point where they're more in touch with themselves. They're more in touch with their inner morality, their heart. They're more loving, more happy, joyous. And I think that's what the medicine wants to teach us. But sometimes she'll shine a light, on part, like blind spots, like the parts of us that we're not seeing. So that's the beauty of ayahuasca. She's knows us better than what we know ourselves, and actually wants us to be better people. Now, Kambo, for example, works in a similar way, but slightly different. Kambo doesn't have like that psychedelic effect, but personally, I find that Kambo to be the most useful out of all the medicines, because of the way that, especially when you're working with it in a conscious way, if you're able to go into a Kambo treatment with something in your mind that you're aware of, a pattern. So especially in working with ayahuasca as well, ayahuasca can show you a lot of things, but then you still have to walk through that door. She can put you in a stadium and highlight something, and you still have that choice whether you want to work on that or not. Now, the thing is with Kambo is if you go into a Kambo treatment with the intention of what it is that you've been highlighted, that you want to release that consciously, and you're ready to do that, and you've looked at all of the different excuses of why you still carry out these behaviors, and you've looked at all of the fears that are potentially rooting it in, and all of the shame that's been suppressing it. If you can see what it is that you're releasing with Kambo, I find it to be the most powerful way to overcome old patterns, is to look to be able to understand what it is that you're releasing and going in with that intention. Because Kambo works on the physical body and on the emotional, energetic body. And if you could go into it with a strong intention, I've seen it perform miracles. And I'm not joking.
Wow, yeah, and I love that, Lewis. And I think what really comes into my mind and my own personal experience is the plant medicine, if it's Kambo or ayahuasca or any other kind of medicine, it helps us get us uncomfortable. Because I think when we get comfortable, we stop growing. And I think my own, as a nutshell, over the years, I've had some very, very deep experiences of really sometimes horrible what you're seeing, but it's that mirror that is placed in front of you, say, look, this is who you are, this is what you've done. And really, when we look at the universe and the earth and plant medicine, they're not there to punish us, they're there to help us so that we can become our true self, our authentic self, stripping away all that shit, all those layers that we've created, those false belief systems. But for me, it makes you feel uncomfortable. And I say to people, when you're uncomfortable, good. Because when we're uncomfortable, that's when we grow. That's when we learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something I was going to mention earlier, actually. I think it was, Lewis was making a point about, we find ourselves going through a cycle or whichever is to put ourselves in uncomfortable situations. And I just want to give a very, very small example. last year, myself and Stephen, we went on a men's gathering event in Cumbria, and I was a bit apprehensive, but I've sort of been fortunate enough to know to push myself, and I feel like that does us a lot of good. And when we were talking earlier about sometimes we don't want to take that advice of people close to us or family, you can find real wisdom, counsel, whatever you want to call it, in what would be strangers. And you sit there amongst people that you would consider strangers, and you go, actually, we've got an awful lot in common here. Of all ages, we're actually sharing a lot of what we're feeling. We're sharing, so I feel that's good advisement to anybody, is to maybe put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. Don't just sit there suffering. Book that retreat, plant medicine ceremony, or maybe just a retreat, a men's retreat, or whichever, a meditation retreat. There's so much. I mean, that is a huge positive, I think, in the world we're living in now. There is a lot of options, and that would be my advice. But what I'd want to ask really next is, I feel like we're covering the mind, the spirit, talked a little bit about plant medicine there, and I feel I want to go to the physical, our physical bodies. And we spoke with you both on previous episodes, the last one with Lewis talking about the omega-3, and also with Kieran before. And it's something that came to me actually last year about the importance of the body. And myself and Stephen came into this work on really heavily on the spiritual side. And we've experienced a lot of people who've done some very, wonderful spiritual work, but the bodies have suffered severely of neglect. And I feel that's the really important time we're living in, not only if we're doing spiritual work, but for our well-being. So I'd just like to come to you and ask that question about the importance of the care of our physical body, our vehicle, while we're here on the earth.
Well, it's the only real thing keeping us alive, so it's quite important. The physical is where I first started in my career. When I first became a personal trainer, like probably 12 years ago now, I was very much like the training guy, the physical guy. I had nothing up here. I had no spirituality. Was suppressing emotions, no doubt at the time. I was just very physical. And for me, it taught me a lot by pushing my body to its limits. It certainly plays a bigger part than I think it gets credit for, because I really believe the physical is a reflection of the mental. Something I notice in my industry is those that are really suffering mentally often suffer physically as well, and those that are really kind of at peace, let's say healed, whatever you want to call it, they can really flourish physically as well. And in the past, I often viewed this as kind of separate things. We've got our mind, we've got our body, our soul, spiritual side of things, emotions, all this. But I really believe they're all interlinked now. And if one drops, most of them will drop. So for me, I started working on the physical, then I moved on to the mental and emotional, and now going down the spiritual route. And by working on the mental, learning how to think well, learning how to change perspectives, learning how to relieve old trauma, all that sort of stuff, the physical flourished a little. But now going down the spiritual route, it's flourishing even more. So I don't believe that one is any superior to the other. I really believe they're all just kind of interlinked, because I see a hell of a lot of people that are in the spiritual community, and this is a new area for me, so I'm talking with limited knowledge here, but I see a lot of people in the spiritual community that they say they're very much at peace, but their physical body isn't, or they're kind of got absolutely, like, they're living in the car or whatever. And each to their own. I'm not being too judgmental here, but I see a lot in the spiritual community in regards to that area is really focused on, but the other areas are being neglected. And I think it's probably fair to say spirituality, plant medicine will only get you so far. The other areas do need work done as well. So for me, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, but also environmental as well. I really believe you can take all the ayahuasca under the sun, but if you live in a crack den, you hang around with crackheads, it ain't going to do much for you. You know what I mean? So it's very important to have these areas in balance. But as far as what to do physically, I think the best thing to do is something you enjoy, and then also challenge your thoughts around the ones that you don't enjoy. I have been more of a gym goer, let's say, throwing dumbbells around for the most of my fitness career, and I was at a very, very high level. And I've probably not enjoyed, let's say, the running, the physical aerobic fitness side of things. But I'm going to push myself to do that this year. I'm going to try and do a half marathon, way out my comfort zone. It's a bit of a challenge. And there's probably reasons behind why I've not enjoyed it. But if I force myself to do it and I challenge those thoughts around why don't I enjoy it, by the end of this year, touch wood, I'll be in the best shape I've ever been in and physically a lot fitter as well. So I think it's very important to prioritize the physical to a degree, almost, I'd say almost over everything else, because, and it depends where the cycle kind of starts, because let's say if you've got the kind of physical at the top and you get to the gym and you're eating well and you're going to have your physical body, mentally you're going to feel a hell of a lot better. Emotionally going to feel a hell of a lot better. Your spiritual journey will be no doubt a lot smoother. But if the physical drops and you neglect that, like you mentioned before, Lewis, everything else starts crumbling. And I think I view it as a circle in regards to it is all connected. And if one fails or drops or gets neglected, it kind of all falls down. So, yeah, that's my opinion on it. He plays a bigger part than most people give it credit for, I think.
Yeah, I agree, Kieran. I think the thing is, it's a fact, you know, that our physical body is governed by science, and there is chemistry that's in the body that plays a part in our mood and well-being. And you know, if we're exercising regularly, you know, eating well, we're going to have good levels of serotonin and dopamine, and you know, all these good endorphins, all these really good natural endogenous neuropeptides and yeah, this amazing vehicle that we've got needs to be looked after, and if we do start to look after it, you do start to feel better. Now, I think that puts you in a really good stead, especially if you're doing work on yourself. You don't want to be, you know, in this position where you're unhealthy in your body, because you're going to be unhealthy in your mind as well. There's no, you can't do one without the other, really. I think that if you could do any without the other, I think that the physical side of it, because the thing is, if you've got a physical discipline and you're doing something, exercising every day, your mind is grounded. You're not in your head so much. You've got something to focus on. So by doing physical activity, you kind of hitting two birds with one stone. You can't just think your way to fitness. That's the, you know, you can't just meditate your way to fitness. And you know, you can't meditate your way to a healthy body. You know, so I think that the physical side of it is probably more important. I know some people can you know, have a great life, you know, without doing physical activity if they eat well and, you know, they have a good mental well-being. But I think that looking after your physical body, getting the right nutrients, getting enough exercise, and you know, not overeating, you know, not undereating. I think that balance is key when it comes to the physical body as well. I think, like, sometimes I've seen people that exercise too extremely and it becomes an addiction, and actually they end up with, you know, multiple injuries, mental health issues because of like appearance complexes, body dysmorphia and things like that. So balance, I think, when it comes to the physical body is key, but at least doing some kind of physical activity is going to be beneficial for your mental well-being. So it plays a massive part. Definitely exercise and nutrition, I would say, is something that everybody should at least be looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that word is moderation is very important in that. I was just thinking, I was just smiling, thinking, yeah, it'd be great if you could meditate going to the gym, really, and do it that way. But it's not the way, is it? And
Just imagine it.
Ah.
Believe it or not, there's actually a scientific study that's been done that shows that you can actually visualize that you've gone to the gym and you can produce neurochemicals in your brain that actually mimic quite closely that someone that's been in the gym. There's an actual study on that, by the way. So I just wanted to put it out there. The power of the mind.
You maybe want to edit that bit out, or you're just gonna people will be stopped going to the gym, and then everyone's gonna be getting more overweight than they already are, more depressed than they already are.
To meditate with all your snacks around you and everything. Just, yeah, I'll be all right. And just sort of what I'd like to come to now, I suppose it's been mentioned a little bit, is routine as well. Lewis mentioned it, and I feel that's really good. In a way, I'm of the thought there's not one solution to anything, but I feel like you build up almost like a toolkit of things that are go-tos when you feel in a certain way that can be useful and that can stop it from going any further. So what sort of routines do you have personally when you're feeling that way between your both?
Yeah, good question, Chris. And something I'm really passionate about as well, because for a lot of years I just wasted a lot of time. And with the nature of my work now, I need routine to a degree. I think a lot of people, though, do view routine as like solid military precision structure. I think routine can include fluidity and flexibility. Like the background on my laptop, it's an Excel spreadsheet from 8 in the morning till 10 p.m. at night, and every hour is blocked out with a certain thing. Do I stick to that? Not at all. But that's in my mind, it's a theoretical perfect week. It also gives me some form of order. It also blocks out important tasks that I want to be done. So I don't just go with how I feel at the moment when someone says, can you do X, Y, and Z? So there's many, many different things play a part with this. The best bit of advice I could give to anyone listening is almost play around with it and see what works, because a lot of people try and listen to what does Mark Wahlberg do? All right, he does X, Y, and Z, and they try and implement that. Or what does The Rock do? What's his morning routine? I want to be like him. Or Huberman. What's all these kind of big names do? And I'm going to replicate them. They don't live your life, and you're not them. So you're only ever going to be a shit version of them if you get anywhere near. So I think really playing around with what you like to do. But again, for me, it's about getting out your mind onto paper. What is a theoretical perfect week? And then trying to aim towards that, because I think a lot of things play a part in it regards to, let's say I block out today from 10 till 12 for editing content videos or client calls or whatever, right? Editing content videos is probably a better example. But then my friend calls me, and for him, it's very convenient for him to call me. But I've got this kind of time blocked out because this is my theoretical perfect week. Now, this is where I think emotions or subconscious emotions play a part. Now, if I'm feeling a little bit lonely, I'll probably naturally want to answer that call, and I'll speak to my pal because he's my mate. But this is where the routines need a bit more discipline in regards to sticking to them, because I can also include in that routine social time and when that suits me. And then now I'm living life on my terms. And I think something I hear a lot in regards to, kind of time management, spinning all these different plates we've all got to spin, which is kind of linked to what we're talking about. Everyone always says, I've got a lot on at the minute. It's a phrase I hear day in, day out. I've got loads on. I've always got loads on. We've always got loads on. And don't get me wrong, an extra kind of plate to spin can overwhelm someone. But I often believe overwhelm is just not knowing how to continue spinning all these plates, but more importantly, where they go in the week. You know what I mean? So having kind of non-negotiables, having your own standards of what you accept as okay every week is important for routine. It's important for time management. It's important for stress and overwhelm and reducing it more specifically. Being disciplined and not just kind of letting your emotions take over in the moment all of the time. I think it's important to say all the time, because it's important to also be spontaneous and go with the flow. And this is what I've realized since I kind of went down the spiritual route a little bit more is previously, I'll tell you a little story because I organized a podcast with a guy who is very, very spiritual. And I was going to do a podcast with him and I said to him, okay, we'll sort it out next week. Let me know at the end of time. I'll have a look at the diary. I'll book you in and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, well, we'll just see how we're feeling that, you know. And I was thinking, I can't work with that. I've got other meetings. I've got shit to do. You know what I mean? Tell me a day and a time. So anyway, it came round to the Tuesday. So I rang him in the morning. I was like, how you feeling today, mate? You feel like you can do it? Yeah, well, you know, come and see us and, you know, we'll see how it goes. I'm like, is that a yeah or no? Like, just tell me. Like, you know what I mean? So what I realised from that little interaction was I thought a hell of a lot. He didn't think, he just feels. He just goes with the flow through life. You know what I mean? And each to their own. I can learn a thing from him and he can learn a thing from me. So I think routine, it doesn't have to be this hour by hour military precision. I've got to do this, got to be up at 5 a.m. in the gym. I've got to be in bed by 10. Like, add fluidity into it. Go with the flow to a degree. But if that's not working, then move more towards the Excel spreadsheet and get some strict times nailed down.
Yeah, I think that structure is an important thing, especially for me because I'm quite like spiritual in my being. Like I flow with things. If something doesn't work out, I'm like, okay, cool. Like it's not meant to be. So easily, just like I'll just weave my way in and out. But I think that if you want to be like water, you've got to have at least a riverbank, you know, to flow down. So you've got that fluidity. If you don't have that structure around you, then or a canal, for example, you're not going to the water's just going to go everywhere. You're not going to, you know, you'll overflow, you'll overspill. So I think that it's really important to have structure in your life now. Yeah, definitely that fluidity is what's really important, to be flexible, I think, because, you know, some people, you know, have that mindset of like, I need to be disciplined, but like disciplining themselves like really harshly, like if things don't go very well. Now I've witnessed it myself with people that have this sort of like strong discipline mindset, and especially comparing themselves to the likes of, you know, like Huberman, like what you said. And when they're having a bad day or they need like a bit of time for themselves, it's like all of a sudden, you know, there's a massive crash and they just feel really bad because they couldn't stick to these like goals and these strict regime that they've got. And then what can happen is I find that if people are constantly unable to meet their goals, then procrastination kicks in, and then people end up doing a lot less. They can spend half their time and energy thinking about what they didn't do, or you know, or how to, you know, how to improve on things than actually just flowing, because I think that it's a lot less energy to sort of flow between things. And if something doesn't work out or you need a rest, you know, allowing that time for you to have a rest, I think that you can recover a lot quickly when you're in that state. When you're constantly trying to stick to a regime and you don't allow that fluidity, it can take quite a lot of energy. I think that it can keep us quite often in that sort of parasympathetic nervous system, which is running your adrenals. If you're like trying to keep to, you know, targets all the time, I think that can be very tiring and stressful. Stress is definitely, you know, something that takes its toll on our body. So I think that if you can, I think it's definitely balanced, because I think if you don't have any structure, you just end up like not getting anything done. And I think that if you have too much structure, I think that can also have a negative effect on you, mental state, and also ultimately with stress mental state that leads to tiredness and physical issues.
I think it'd be worth commenting on at this point how much emotion plays a part in sticking to a routine and kind of getting tasks done. Let's say, as before we started recording, I mentioned today I've been creating emails, and I also followed that up with I hate emails, like would rather much do video content, etc. And that's a job I've put off for a long time, because I thought I hated emails. I actually enjoyed writing them once I got around to it. So I haven't analysed it yet, but my emotions at the time was, I don't really want to do this. It's a little bit difficult. And that was before I even kind of started. So I think emotions play a hell of a part in creating a routine, sticking to a routine, implementing it, and also kind of like reflecting and analyzing on it as well in regards to, was I okay with that? Was I happy with the way that went? You know what I mean? So yeah, analyzing your own emotions throughout the trying of routines, structures, all that sort of stuff is probably the most valuable lesson I could give.
I mean, I just want to mention as well about in my personal experience, try to create systems that are easy for me, that make things my life easier. I think a lot of people make so much difficult for themselves and put in their physical and spiritual life, where just make things easier for yourself, not making things comfortable, because once we're comfortable we don't move and shift. I think the problem is a lot of people have such high expectations, they expect so much, and actually just go with the flow. But my thing, I used to use the word discipline a lot in the practices that I use, but I tried to rewire from that word to devotion. I tried to devote my practices and my life in like Lewis said, a little bit more of a fluid way, go with the flow. And what's really funny is when we did the men's retreat, Kieran, me and Chris, we at the Purple Mountain, and you know, running your own business, Lewis and Kieran, we have to have discipline, we have to have structure. And it was just so fluid, and it triggered me. And really the message was just go with the flow, Stephen. Stop being so bloody intense. Enjoy things, because I think you have this expectation of this is the way it should be and this is the way it should. No, just go with the flow and have no expectations, be patient, and yeah, just what will be will be.
Yeah, it's so important. I feel that message has been repeated several times in this podcast by us all, that moderation and not too much of one thing and balance. And for me, it's just, I just want to echo what everybody else has said, really. There's times in my life when I feel I need the routine and I need the go-tos or whatever that is. And then there's other times when I'm lucky enough, I have a friend called Stephen who shakes up my routine now and again, and he'll give me a call and say, I've got all these things set out in my day that I want to do. I'm going to do all these tasks. And he'll ring me and go, do you fancy doing something else? And I'm like, I'll think of all the reasons why not to. But when I do it, I really enjoy it. And I think we need that sometimes to throw it out the window and say, that wasn't meant to be for that day. What I actually need is to spend a bit of time with a friend and have a chat, go for a walk or whatever. So it's balanced with everything, and yeah, amazing stuff. And so just as we sort of start to wrap things up here, I want to thank both of you, Lewis and Kieran, for joining us. I feel like we could do another of these, I really do. And I was thinking before, I thought, what way we're going to go here, and I had all sorts written down, and before I even got to the points, one of you already reached out to it. And I feel it's been a real balanced talk. And I just hope everybody listening out there that you're able to receive something from it for whatever way is needed. I know that Lewis or Kieran would be very open. If you want to reach out to them, we will give their information on this podcast. And if you want to seek advice in the areas that they specialize in, I'm sure they'd be more than happy to do that. So I want to thank you both once again. Thank everybody that's listening and that's joined us, or wherever you are listening. Until we speak again, just want to say lots of love to everyone and say goodbye for now.
Thank you.